You're afraid of Alzheimer's. But here's what's strange. Most people who fear it don't know how it actually begins. They expect a sudden collapse. But in reality, everything happens differently. And if you understand how, you can stop it. There's a thin line you can't see at first. On one side, normal age-related changes. When you forget something, but then remember it. You hesitate, but catch your thought. You lose your keys, but find them in the usual place. You forget someone's name, but remember it a minute later. This is normal. It happens to everyone. On the other side, a state where it's not memory that's lost. It's the ability to notice the changes. That's completely different. And there's an important marker here. As long as it worries you, that's a good sign. It means your system is still monitoring itself. When someone says, "I'm forgetting things and it scares me," it means their consciousness is still working. It sees the problem. It reacts to it. That's nothing like what happens with dementia. With dementia, a person doesn't notice changes. Or they notice but don't understand what they mean. Or they understand but can't do anything about it. That's a completely different level. So the first question you need to ask yourself, am I noticing that something is changing? If the answer is yes, it means you're still in a zone where you can act. If the answer is no, but people tell me I've changed, that's a more serious signal. But even then, it's not a death sentence. It's just information. If you're not noticing changes yourself, you should see a specialist and not delay your visit to a doctor. Let's figure out what signals people typically miss and why they matter. Have you noticed that after talking you feel more tired than before? Not physically tired, but mentally, as if you spent an enormous amount of energy just listening and responding. This isn't laziness. This isn't social anxiety. It's a signal that your brain is working under overload, because processing speech, understanding context, formulating responses, these are complex processes. And when your brain works in conditions that don't suit it, these processes demand more energy. You start reading an article or watching a film, and after a few minutes you realize you've absorbed nothing. You need to reread it or rewatch it. It's not because you're not in the mood. It's because your brain can't hold attention on one thing. It gets distracted or simply shuts down. This is a very important signal people often ignore. Have you noticed you increasingly want to do nothing? Not rest actively, but actually disconnect, sit in silence, not think. This isn't depression. It's your brain's protective response. When the system is overloaded, the brain tries to reduce the load. It shuts down unnecessary functions. It's like when a computer slows down because it's running out of memory. You used to make decisions quickly. Now you weigh options for a long time. Or you put off deciding altogether. This isn't indecisiveness, it's overload. Because making a decision requires processing information, analyzing options, predicting consequences. And when your brain works under stress, these processes slow down. Have you noticed you increasingly want to do simple things? And you avoid tasks that require deep thinking? This isn't laziness, it's self-preservation instinct. Your brain knows it's overloaded, and it tries to avoid additional strain. All these signals, they don't mean you have Alzheimer's. They mean your system is working in conditions that don't suit it, and this can be changed. And here you need to make a very important distinction. There are two different processes. First, overload. When the system works in conditions that don't suit it, but the system itself is intact. It's just working at its limit. Second, destruction. When the structure itself begins to degrade. That's completely different. And here's the key distinction. Overload is reversible. Destruction is much harder. Most people who notice changes in their brain after 50 are in a state of overload, not destruction. This is very important to understand because it means there's a window of opportunity, a window where you can change something. Your brain doesn't break suddenly. It first works in conditions that don't suit it and gradually reduces the quality of its work, not sharply, but quietly. But if you're noticing these changes, it means you're still at the beginning of the process. You can still reverse it. And now, the main question. Can this be changed? In most cases, yes, because we're not talking about destruction. We're talking about a state, about environment, about overload. And your brain is much more flexible than people think. When conditions change, it responds, sometimes faster than you'd expect. But you need to be honest here. Not all changes are equally reversible. There are functional problems, those that arise from conditions. They're reversible. You improve the conditions, and your brain starts working better. And there are structural problems, those linked to physical tissue damage. They're less reversible. But even then, your brain can compensate for losses. It can create new neural pathways. It can relearn. This is called neuroplasticity. And this ability persists into deep old age. So even if you already have some structural changes, it doesn't mean you can't improve the situation. You can. It just requires a more consistent approach and more time, but it's possible. And here's where something appears that people rarely talk about directly. There's a system, not complicated, but consistent. A system that reduces inflammation in your body, stabilizes your energy, restores a healthy gut, gives your brain a clean environment to work in. And it's precisely in these conditions that your brain works best. Because remember what we discussed in previous videos? Your brain depends on its environment, on what substances circulate in its blood, on how stable your energy is, on whether there's inflammation. When these conditions are good, your brain can focus on its work. When they're bad, your brain has to spend energy fighting problems, and this reduces its performance. So the first step isn't memory training or nootropics. The first step is creating the right conditions. And the foundation of these conditions is nutrition, not as a restriction, but as a tool. When your diet includes sufficient protein, natural animal fats, fewer fast carbohydrates, your body starts working differently, more calmly, more stably. And this directly affects your brain. Because when energy is stable, when there are no blood sugar spikes, when your gut works calmly, your brain gets a clean environment. And in this environment, it can recover. Now let's figure out what exactly you need to do. This isn't magic, and it's not a quick effect. But these are conditions where your brain maintains clarity longer. And that's what matters. This isn't a diet. It's simply changing what you eat. Add more protein. Meat, fish, eggs. This is the foundation. Add natural fats. Butter, olive oil, fat from meat. This isn't the enemy. This is fuel for your brain. Reduce fast carbohydrates. Bread, sugar, pasta. Don't eliminate completely. Just reduce. Because when you eat lots of carbohydrates with low protein and fat, your body experiences energy spikes. And this creates stress for your brain. Remember, we talked about how your gut affects your brain? You can see the link to that video on screen now. It's also in the description. Add fermented foods. Sauerkraut, kefir, natural yogurt. This helps restore healthy microflora. This means you eat regularly. You don't snack all day. You eat full meals. When energy is stable, your brain can work calmly. Replace coffee with chicory. Cut back on tea, because constant stimulation creates stress for your nervous system, and this affects your brain. You can also watch our video about the best food for your brain using the link on screen and in the description. This isn't advice, it's a necessity, because during sleep your brain clears itself of toxins. It recovers. It consolidates memory. Without enough sleep, none of this happens. All these things together create a system, not complicated, but consistent. And it's precisely in this system that your brain can recover. Now the question everyone asks, when will I see results? Honest answer, it's individual. If you're in a state of overload, results can appear fairly quickly. Some people notice improved concentration within 2 to 3 weeks, improved energy within a month, improved memory within 2 to 3 months. But this isn't guaranteed. It depends on how serious the overload was, how long it lasted, how consistently you follow the system. If you're in a state of more serious damage, results will be slower, but they will come. Because your brain isn't a static organ, it adapts, it recovers, it relearns. The key is giving it the right conditions and being patient. Now let's do a simple self-diagnosis. Answer these questions honestly. If yes, that's a good sign. It means your consciousness is still working. If no, but people tell you that you've changed, That's a more serious signal. In this case, you should see a specialist and not delay your doctor's visit. If yes, that's a signal of overload. If you answered yes to most of these questions, it means your system is working under overload conditions. And that's good news, because overload is reversible. If you answered no to most questions, it means your system is working normally. But that doesn't mean you can relax, because prevention is always better than treatment. Now let's return to nutrition, because it's the foundation of the entire system. When you eat meat, fish, eggs, you give your body protein. From this protein, neurotransmitters are built, substances that allow your brain to think, feel, remember. When you eat natural fats, you give your brain fuel, because your brain is 60% fat, and it needs quality fuel. When you reduce fast carbohydrates, you stabilize your energy, because fast carbohydrates create blood sugar spikes, and blood sugar spikes create stress for your body, and this stress affects your brain. When you restore your gut, you restore a source of vitamins and minerals, because a healthy gut produces B vitamins, vitamin K, and many other substances your brain needs. All these things together create conditions where your brain can work optimally, and in these conditions it maintains clarity longer. This doesn't guarantee you'll never have memory problems, but it reduces the risks, and it creates conditions where your brain can stay young longer. So let's sum up. If you notice something changing in your brain, it's not a death sentence. It's a signal that your system is working under overload conditions. And these conditions can be changed, not through pills, not through memory training, but through creating the right environment, through nutrition, through restoring your gut, through stabilizing your energy, through reducing stress. All these things together create a system. And in this system, your brain can recover. It's not magic, and it's not a quick effect, but it works, and it's in your hands. Now I want to hear from you. Did you recognize yourself in this description? Which of these signals have you noticed in yourself? Write in the comments. It's important for me to know what concerns you most. And if you want to understand how to structure nutrition that supports your brain and reduces the risks of age-related changes, watch our entire Brain After 50 playlist. We cover everything in detail about this serious topic. Subscribe to the channel if it's important for you to maintain health. Not just your brain, but your entire body. In the next videos, we'll move to another important section, the health of your heart and blood vessels. Be sure to set a reminder for new videos so you don't miss these episodes and maintain control over your condition. Because our journey is just beginning, and I want to be with you every step of the way. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video. Your Dr. Adam.